Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Secret Book Club, the Vassals of Kingsgrave comic book club. In this episode, we will be discussing the first 12 issues of Warren Ellis's and John Cassaday's Planetary. It's a series published by Wildstorm in the late 90s and into the 2000s, and a thumbnail, I guess, is it's a book about archaeologists of the unknown who are searching for the secret history of the 20th century. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's the comic in a nutshell. And I'm just going to let everyone introduce themselves, and then we'll get started discussing it.
Oh, hi, I'm Greg, Claudius the Fool on the forums.
This is Shane, East Texas Direwolf on the forums.
Hi, this is Matt, Eiffel on the forums.
This is Scott. I'm Skywalker on the forums.
And I'm Thomas, FTWard on the forums. If everyone just wants to kind of go around again and may kind of discuss what your thoughts on reading Planetary. And again, we just read the first 12 issues plus the preview issue, which came out, I think, a few months before the series started. But if you just want to discuss, again, maybe in order, what your general thoughts were, what your expectations were maybe of the series, and what you thought of the first 12 issues so far.
Well, I read the first issue a couple years ago because it was like you could download it for free on Comixology, and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't continue with it. And then when we, it was brought up in one of the previous polls, it seemed to have some legwork, so I just got the omnibus. But I was told that it was kind of like X-Files-ish, but with more superheroes oriented, and that's kind of what I expected going in. And it took some getting used to the world, but I kind of just suspended all of my judgment and just dove into it, and I really enjoyed it. I really like the character of Elijah Snow, and I like the fact that we're sort of we're learning about Planetary along with him, so he's kind of like our guide to the world, which I kind of appreciated. And some of the issues I loved, some of them I just was like, oh, that was nice. I don't know what the hell that was about, but then once I realized kind of what's going on, and it took me like 5 issues to realize what the hell the drummer was actually there for. But I really like the sort of team that they put together, and I liked how they kind of like some of the issues are self-contained little stories with bookends, and some of them are just like a tip of the iceberg to what's actually going on in these worlds. But I really enjoyed it.
I'm sorry. And when you say, have you just read the first 12, or did you go on and read the rest?
No, I stopped.
Okay. Well, then if you're confused by some of the first 12, wait till you get to the second.
Oh, but I expected at this point, and that kind of like I enjoy that part of it. That it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to know everything, and it's Snow has that line at one point. He's like, one day you guys are gonna say a sentence, and I'm gonna understand the whole thing without having a question, and that's kind of how I feel through most of it. But yeah, but I really enjoyed it, and it's probably the most like out there, I guess, I don't know, series that I've read, because most of the stuff I like is more grounded in reality. But this is, aside from Sandman, but this is a lot of fun.
Cool. What about you, Shane?
It never really grabbed me. I mean, I can appreciate the quality of the writing and the art, and I like the individual issues, but the overall story and the characters never really grabbed me. I thought it was pretty good, but I think I probably would have liked it a lot better if I read it when it came out, because now it reminded me of a lot of other things that came out around the same time or after. So
we should say it came out over 10 years' time, so it's a difficult comic to have read when it came out, just because the publishing was so sporadic.
Oh, the schedule.
It is only 27 issues, I think, but it took for a lot of different reasons. It took over 10 years for it to come out. So I think I'm going to talk about this later. I think there are a lot of parallels with A Song of Ice and Fire, kind of meta and narrative wise, and that's one of them. I think that just the long delayed publishing of it.
Was that for the writing or the art?
Mostly the writing, but it's a whole bunch of different stuff. But I think there were health issues involved, and Wildstorm changed hands, I think, during its publishing and stuff. But there's a number of reasons.
Yeah. So I kind of went between a 3 and a 3.5 for the lemon cake rating, so I settled on like a 3.25.
Yeah, I think we're just going to go with snowflakes.
3.25 snowflakes.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I assume, Shane, that you loved page 159 where Swamp Thing's cousin showed up. So
I did like that issue.
5 stars for this.
I did like that
I
issue.
really want to talk
Just
about that issue because I don't know what the hell is going on there, but we'll
No, that's my least favorite, but we'll get to it. But it was just weird. But I was like, I think that's Swamp Thing.
It's definitely Swamp Thing.
Okay.
Okay, Matt, what about you?
I really liked it. I really like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and there's this author, Philip Jose Farmer, who kind of does what the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen does, where they take, things from other parts of literature and then they put them into their own story. And so once I realized that that's what this was, I became really interested in it. And so like the first issue I was okay on, but then the second one where they had everyone hanging around and I started recognizing, I was like, wait, isn't that, that guy kind of looks like the Shadow. And then I realized that this was going to be yeah. Well, it's going to be taking, references from everything else and, twisting them a little bit.
Yeah,
and it kind of
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was one of the ones I was thinking of that reminded me of a lot.
Yeah. So it becomes kind of like a treasure hunt to figure out, like, what's that a reference to and everything. And since it was mostly comic book stuff, whereas League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, you kind of have to go into the depths of Wikipedia to find a lot of the references. I knew most of the references, so that was a lot of fun.
Let's have the Nautilus. You got that Nautilus connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I should say we're in a normal superhero universe. The kind of assumption is that superheroes are real in that universe. Here, Ellis kind of makes the assumption that all fiction is real in this universe, and therefore everything from popular fiction. I don't want to say everything, but he's dealing with popular fiction in every issue.
Yeah,
and that in this universe, it's all real and it's all part of kind of the secret history.
Yeah, and I guess I like that mystery.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conceit, I think, and as you said, I very much enjoy kind of the game of it, of piecing together references and kind of seeing the twist that's put on them here.
Yeah. The other thing too is this is the only thing that I've read in the Wildstorm universe, and so sometimes when they kept talking of Jenny Sparks like it was a person that I should know about, and I'm like, who's this person? Like, why is everyone so impressed by her? And so I had to do a lot of research on that. So
yeah, it is.
Another way was like exploring a brand new universe because I've never seen Wildstorm before. So
was Jenny Sparks a character created just for Planetary, or was she a person in the Wildstorm
Jenny
universe?
Sparks is created originally by Ellis in Stormwatch, which is kind of the equivalent of the Justice League or the Avengers in the Wildstorm universe. It's the kind of big superhero group that is run by the United Nations. And Ellis created her for Stormwatch, and then eventually she becomes the leader of the Authority, which is kind of evolves directly out of Stormwatch. And that was kind of one of the huge comics. And Ellis had his hand in a lot of them, but one of the huge comics of the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I didn't read any of those, but they all kind of blended together, and the Authority and Wildstorm and Planetary.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a few references to Wildstorm. Characters, Jenny Sparks maybe is the most prominent one, but I don't think you really need to have any kind of deep or any real understanding of the Wildstorm universe to kind of get what Planetary's about.
No. Well, I didn't have any.
Yeah.
So.
Me neither, and I still don't know what Planetary's about, but it's fun to read.
Okay, what about you, Scott?
So I came into Planetary like completely blind. I had no idea what it was about. I got the omnibus for Christmas, and then I just kind of went through it really quickly. I really got into it because I really liked Elijah Snow, the main character, because he kind of reminded me of Big B Wolf from Fables, or he kind of reminded me of Logan, like Wolverine from Old Man Logan, which is like an alternate universe Wolverine comic. But like he's a detective, and he goes into this Planetary blind, and so he's just kind of guiding you. So not knowing anything about Wildstorm or any of the universe, it was kind of neat to go in with him and kind of discover all these things that were going on. And I really liked how the stories were self-contained. So that was really, I don't know, I really kind of got into it. I'm really excited you picked this one.
I'm super glad you said that. Yeah, like A Song of Ice and Fire, the story kind of is told in both directions of time as the story goes on. So you learn the past and the kind of ongoing story kind of unfolds, and you get those little tidbits of stuff like you would get in A Song of Ice and Fire, like you would hear about Summer Hall or something like that. You get little tidbits about the Nautilus and what happened on the Nautilus in the past. And some of those, like in A Song of Ice and Fire, you'll get more information as the story goes on, and some of them will just kind of remain as those tantalizing, little exciting bits that you'll never kind of get closure on. And I like that quite a bit as well. All right, I'm not super qualified to talk about Warren Ellis too much, and John Cassaday even less. But Warren Ellis is an English writer who started, I think, on like Judge Dredd and those kind of 2000 AD stuff in England in the early 90s, and then he came to America, I think, first at Marvel in the mid 90s, and then he did quite a bit at Marvel before he did some stuff at DC too, but before kind of settling in at Wildstorm, where he kind of took the reins of Stormwatch, which we talked about a little bit earlier, and he kind of revolutionized, I would say, superhero comics with Stormwatch. It's really, for me, it's hard to overstate kind of the importance of what he did at first with Stormwatch and then with Authority as kind of the most in my opinion anyway, the most influential superhero comics of, say, the last 25 years. I think everything that we kind of know today is kind of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You can trace directly back to what he was doing at Stormwatch and the Authority. So he's a very important and influential comic book author, and he remains so to this day. He also had a pretty important kind of early online presence that might even be as influential or as important as anything he wrote. He had a site which I'll just call Warren Ellis Online. I think it went through several different names and stuff, but at that site was kind of a very important place on the internet, again in the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, where a lot of people that are writing and into comics now in the profession kind of were able to interact with people in the industry and kind of get their start, as well as just kind of interesting conversation about comics. I mean, think of it for us as something like a podcast of Ice and Fire, just a place where a lot of like-minded people met up and kind of came together and are creating comics today that came through there and kind of got jobs in comics through Warren Ellis. Then John Cassaday, who is the artist, I think like Planetary was his first big job, and as you can see in the course of even these 12 issues plus the preview, his art I think evolves pretty remarkably. If you look at that preview, kind of the art is very rough and not anywhere near the quality that he has by the end of the series or even by the end of the 12th issue. But he's since then he did a big, long, astonishing X-Men run with Joss Whedon. He's done Captain America, and he's done a lot of stuff. And he's probably one of my favorite superhero artists. I don't know what you guys think of the art, but
I like it. The Captain America run, I think, is the first thing The first time I noticed him in the early or late 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah, I think the early 2000s.
He's the one that, as far as I know, kind of brought the chainmail back to Captain America's uniform.
Yeah, he kind of did those posters. Yeah, right after, I want to say like right after 9/11, I remember he had some really cool Captain America posters and covers. And I don't know if you guys know what John Cassaday looks like, but he is basically the drummer. He basically drew himself as the drummer, which I think is hilarious.
I did not know that. Was that the guy you posted a picture of?
Yeah.
That was actually him. Okay.
I put drummer cosplay.
I thought I was a guy doing drummer cosplay.
But it's just a picture of John Cassaday. Okay. You guys have anything you want to say about Ellis or...
I think he did. Didn't he do Marvel Boy?
He did some of Hellblazer too, didn't he? Towards the end, I think.
Which one, Ellis or?
No, yeah, Warren Ellis.
Yeah, Warren Ellis. He wrote Hellblazer for a while, and then he famously kind of left Hellblazer. He had written an arc about a school shooting that was finished before Columbine, but was not published yet, and DC would not publish it without making changes, and he refused to make any changes, so he quit Hellblazer at that point. Yeah. I think the story did eventually get published, maybe like 10 years later, unchanged, but he left Hellblazer at that point. But I think he was actually writing Hellblazer at the time. He wrote issue 7 here. I think it's issue 7, but we'll get to that.
Okay, my bad. It was Grant Morrison that wrote Marvel Boy, the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with Marvel Boy.
It was a Marvel Knights mini.
It's not that horrible one, is it? Where he's
Novar.
Crucified?
I don't remember being crucified. They totally redid the Marvel Boy character as a Kree interdimensional traveler. It kind of got a lot of buzz, but I don't think it sold very well, and not a lot of people read it. But
the Kree, I understand that reference.
Well, it wasn't the Kree you're used to in this series. It was Grant Morrison's far-out version of the Kree.
All right.
Grant Morrison will be on our list at some point, I promise. Mm-hmm. Start with talking about the first issue then. I think we're just going to go through and just briefly talk about each issue, or as much as, or as little as we want about each issue. And the first issue is All Over the World. And in this issue, we first meet, I don't know how you pronounce her name. Is it Jaquita? Is that how you guys would pronounce it?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't pronounced it yet. I've just been reading it.
Yeah. So
Wait, you guys don't read your comics out loud by yourself? 'Cause that's what I do.
Yeah, sometimes I do.
When I was a kid, I thought Xavier was pronounced Baxter. Because that's how my 8-year-old self, who didn't know the name Xavier, read it. And then I saw it on a cartoon or something. It's like Xavier. That makes more sense.
So we first meet Chiquita Wagner, where she is recruiting Elijah Snow to be a member of the Planetary organization, which is a group funded by the secret Fourth Man, who are tasked, as I said earlier, with kind of uncovering the secret history of the 20th century. They are archaeologists of the unknown. And Elijah Snow is a kind of a very crotchety old man. We learn right away that he was born on January 1st, 1900. So he's basically 100 years old when the story starts. And he's wears a white...
Doesn't look a day over 45.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Sometimes he looks a little bit older than 45, but yeah.
Well, there were parts throughout the comic where I couldn't tell if like part of his ability was that he made himself look younger or he just shaved. I think he just shaved, but like some of the panels where the one where he's looking at himself in the mirror, like I thought he like made himself look younger. But then I realized that probably wasn't what's happening.
Yeah, when we first meet him, he's kind of a hermit, a recluse. He's been living in the desert for 10 years or more, and he's kind of unshaven and unkempt. And Chiquita Wagner, and he dresses all in white, I guess I should say. And we learn pretty quickly that he has the superpower of he's able to control cold and temperature, so he can freeze things, I guess, with his mind. And Chiquita Wagner is a kind of a striking young woman, and where Snow dresses kind of all in white, she dresses all in black leather. And her superpowers are kind of your classic super strength, invulnerability, super speed, super senses, kind of your Superman or Wonder Woman stuff, but you can't fly.
You can drop kick a rhino across the Grand Canyon.
And we will see her eventually kind of drop kick a moving car and stuff. And
She's got the
Wait, did I
Hulk.
miss that? Did I miss the scene where she drop kicked a rhino across the Grand Canyon?
no, she just I
She
think
mentions it, I think.
Drummer.
It's like, how did I miss that, pal?
I think Drummer threatens Elijah Snow
Yeah,
or doing it to him.
it's right when they're jumping out of the helicopter.
Okay.
Doesn't she have
Sure, that
the
would be fun.
Hulk super leg muscles? Can't she jump really far too?
Yeah, she can't fly, but she can jump, she can leap, and she's got super speed and not like Flash super speed, but she's super fast, super strong, invulnerable, super hearing, super vision, all that kind of classic stuff. And then the third member of the Planetary field team is the drummer, who is kind of a slacker hipster who has the ability to speak with machines or operating systems, and that's kind of a
Vague.
vague superpower. It's not easy to understand, but he's kind of a genius with machines. I don't know how else you would describe it. So
A lot of practical applications for a spy or government agent, but not so much for a superhero.
well, I mean he can control machines, which in the 20th and 21st century is pretty powerful superpower if it doesn't seem so on the surface, but it has a lot of applications. And we quickly move once Snow is recruited into the team. We quickly move to a secret mountain base in the Adirondack Mountains that was once the home of Dr. Axel Brass, who is, again, this is kind of where the story is kind of full of analogs to popular fiction from the past, where Dr. Axel Brass would be Doc Savage from the classic pulps of the 20s and 30s. So they come to the secret base of Doc Brass, and he had put together a superhero team basically of 7 other pulp heroes, which would have been Hark, who was kind of the equivalent to Fu Manchu, kind of the Asian mastermind, who is generally, in pulp fiction usually a villain, but here him and Brass have come to an agreement to work together.
I liked
Yeah, it
how
seems like he was a villain, right? And then
Correct, yeah.
in later issues they reveal they were enemies for a while, and he convinced them to join his side.
Yep.
Go ahead. I thought that was a cool reveal.
Yeah. There are later issues where Doc Brass is a recurring character, and we learn, as I said earlier, we kind of learn about the past as the series goes forward. And the other members of Brass's super team are, I think he's called Edison, or the Inventor, and he's kind of like Thomas Edison, or I don't know if you guys read Tom Swift books when you were kids, but to me he's very much a Tom Swift kind of science inventor hero.
I did not grow up in the 1930s, so I did not read Tom Swift.
Tom Swift, I thought he was is he the Alan Moore guy?
No, that's Tom Strong.
Oh.
Tom Swift, I don't know. When I was a kid in the 80s, and he can't.
No, they're older books, but they've been in print forever. I know. They
Well,
actually just reissued them for like the current day's kids with flashy new illustrations.
Oh God, I always thought that they were newer books in the 80s, but I feel like they publish new books like Hardy.
Yeah, they came out. The first one came out in 1910.
Yeah. So these are the kind of characters that are being dealt with this group, characters from the early 1900s. Then there's Lord Blackstoke, who is Lord Greystoke Tarzan character. The English lord raised by apes in Africa. Then there's the Spider, who is very much the Shadow from the pulps, or there's a character actually called the Spider. And as we kind of learn later, he's very closely kind of the Green Hornet. I don't want to spoil anything, but he has a lot of similarities with the Green Hornet as well. And we'll kind of get that story, as I said, later. the Aviator, who is there. I think there was a character called G8 who was kind of a classic pulp pilots who battled other kind of evil pilots. And there's Jimmy, who's the operator, who to me looks very much like the Spirit, but he's also kind of just the classic American G-man, kind of spy, kind of government agent. And that
I got the Spirit from him.
Yeah, he dresses pretty much like the Spirit without the mask, I guess. And that's the supergroup that Dr. Axel Brass put together in the 20s, 30s, and into the 40s. And this group has kind of worked in secret to kind of protect the world and from kind of hidden threats. And when I guess I should say, I'm just reciting too much, I guess. But
we're setting the stage. Don't
okay,
worry.
Yeah, I won't do this for all of them. But when they enter the secret base, they find Dr. Axel Brass there with his kind of atrophied legs, and he's been alive for the past, I guess, 55, 60 years or whatever it is. And he's been guarding this base from intruders because his group created a supercomputer. And I think that might be debatable whether they created it or they found it. But they created a supercomputer, a quantum computer, which they were using to kind of reorder realities. And one of the realities they were reordering was about to be destroyed because that's their supercomputer kind of operates that way. It creates and destroys worlds and runs kind of an infinite number of calculations on those worlds. A world populated by kind of the classic DC Justice League was about to be destroyed.
I was a little confused by this. Was it their meddling in it that was killing their world, or
correct? It seems like this computer creates worlds, runs an infinite number of calculations on those worlds, and then just destroys them. That's kind of the take I got of it. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
Yeah.
What I took from it was it kind of basically it was able to map creation. Like it kind of made a picture of creation and said this is creation. And it looked like, I was going to ask y'all, because I'm thinking this group of pulp heroes, they seem like the bad guys to me. Like they were fixing to obliterate worlds. And I was like...
They weren't fixing to. They were doing it.
Yeah.
See, I thought they were just fighting back. Like, hey, you guys are going to... They were like, we have to kill these crazy group of, the guys that we know saying they're destroying our world. But they came across as kind of bad guys, even though they were all like very brightly colored and there's Batman.
Yeah.
No, those were the good guys.
Yeah, I think for those guys, they're certainly good guys in their own universe because it's very much a classic kind of crisis story where their universe is being destroyed by these alien superpowered villains, but that they come through intent on stopping the pulp heroes on our Earth, and a giant battle ensues between the 7 members of the Justice League analogs and the 7 members of the supergroup, and each kind of guy gal ends up fighting their kind of counterpart in some kind of great action panels. And in the end, the only survivor is Dr. Axel Brass, and he has spent the last 60 years in this mountain hideaway, protecting the supercomputer so that no one else can get their hands on it. And that's kind of how we open. It was longer than I expected and more detailed, but if you guys have your thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
So when I first saw the supercomputer, and this is that in the panel above it with the spider, and it really ticked my mind that this was going to have a lot of callbacks. I thought that was a Green Lantern. Did anyone else see that?
Yes, I mean we'll get
we'll get that later on, but
correct. It certainly appears to be a power battery, a classic DC Universe power battery lantern.
Yeah. Was that Green Lantern character was much later in the 20th century though? But is it the same lantern that he uses?
I don't know.
Well,
are you talking about the issue that had Superman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern analogs?
Yeah, but in this, when they're first setting the supercomputer on the ground, Brass and Edison are kind of hooking it up. It's I don't have the omnibus, I just have the trade. But it appears to be a classic DC Universe power battery lantern. And that's why I said that they say they created this computer, but but it seems to me they found it.
I feel like they created it. And the way that I took what they were doing is they were mapping it. They were mapping the universe or the multiverse or however you want to say it. And then, but the problem was when you were mapping it, there was the chance that you could affect certain worlds. And that's what happened. And that's why this other group came in.
Yeah. What Hark says is, I don't want to read the whole quote, but he says, each alternative universe vanishing one by one until the answer made itself real. So I took that to mean that it creates these universes, and then as it finishes its computations, it destroys them. But I guess it's not super important long run, other than, as we said, that each side in this battle, I think, believes they are the heroes, which is meaningful, I think.
What I took from the issue was that this group of heroes, in my mind, were the villains. They were playing God with realities and destroying worlds, and they weren't. I didn't see it as them creating them. That they were just because they were trying to make sure their world was preserved.
Correct. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, they're a secret conspiracy trying to control the Earth from the shadows, and I think we'll see several of those.
And this sort of set my whole mindset going forward, because they parallel them with Planetary. Because in one of the panels when the group is meeting, the Doc Savage character says, "You didn't need to wait for me, Jimmy. How's things going on the West Coast? Strange. Glad to hear it." And then the last page, Chiquita says, "We did okay," and Snow says it's a strange world, and she says, "Let's keep it that way." So I'm like, okay, they're showing they're the same, and they both have this hubris that is very dangerous. That's what I
agree. I agree. The strange world is a theme that's going to run throughout the series, and the question remains: who gets to decide from Secret? Who gets to run things? And there's. Go ahead.
I didn't know if they were because obviously they must have existed around this at the same time. They're contemporaries for a while, but it seemed like Planetary is a more investigative. I mean, they do get hands-on, but it seems like they're more, because they call themselves archaeologists, and they're more sifting through the pieces to get an answer. Where this other, do we ever get like a name for their group of the Doc Brass and his crew?
I don't believe so.
Corporation and all those guys, they seem like they're more pulling the strings behind the scenes to keep all this weird stuff from coming to the surface, because they say it several times that the world's full of monsters, or there's but the people can't know about them, stuff like that. And it seems like Planetary's more investigating after the fact, where these guys are a little more proactive.
Correct. That's an important point. I think that the Planetary is certainly, as the story begins, just an investigative, and it's a very reactive and investigative organization. It is not proactive, and it's not trying to change the world. It's just trying to catalog the world.
It does seem like they get involved in their investigations a little more than you would expect. Just people taking history.
And your normal archaeologists.
Yes, but they are an information gathering organization, certainly at the beginning.
The one summary I kind of read of the issue said that Ellis was kind of putting pulp heroes against superheroes, and was commenting that he thought pulp heroes would be beating superheroes in commercially. And at that time, I think 99 when he came out, there was a case where you could say, well, pulp heroes might be a bit bigger than superheroes because none of the big comic book movies had been released yet. And you had Indiana Jones and I don't know, other pulp heroes who were much bigger commercially, but in 2000s, superheroes kind of blew away pulp heroes, where to the point where I don't know if a pulp hero could get a movie made now.
Yeah, there was a Solomon Kane movie, I think, a few years ago, which kind of.
Has anybody seen that? I wanted to see it. I heard it was.
It's on Netflix. I haven't watched it yet, but it is on Netflix.
It's the Christopher Lambert, right?
No, it's
the guy that played Caesar. No, not Caesar. Was it Caesar?
Not Caesar. No.
Mark Antony.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Yeah, Mark. Mark. Sorry.
Someone IMDb it, and then we'll just edit.
No, I know the guy's name.
Yeah, but I guess what I thought it was taking on was in the 20s and 30s kind of pulp heroes were the dominant popular
James
fiction.
Purcell,
That's correct, yeah. That I kind of took it as like in the 20s and 30s, pulp heroes were the dominant popular fiction, and then in the late 30s with Superman, and then into the 40s, they were kind of surpassed by comic books, by superhero comics, as the kind of the dominant popular fiction for children anyway. So that's kind of how I took it, as that battle in our world was won by the superheroes, but in this world it was kind of a draw with the pulp heroes kind of defeating, but not being able to really exist after that. But that was just my take on it. Okay.
I didn't really think about it like that.
Yeah, I think if you look at the years and stuff that stuff is happening in the story, it's usually pretty important. Like with the 4, when without getting ahead, but all that stuff I think is meaningful in the context of popular fiction at the time.
Yeah.
Kind of the rise of the Silver Age Marvel comics and stuff. But we'll get there.
I just highlighted a quote, and it's I think Elijah Snow says it. It's amazing how you can talk for ages, but not actually say one goddamn thing I understand.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt going into that book.
Yeah.
That's how I felt pretty much the entire time.
I guess I could take issue 2.
Okay.
Issue 2 is one of the kind of standalone ones, I think. There's a little bit of world building, but it's basically a kaiju issue. They go to an island off of Japan. Well, we first get there with looks like some extreme anti-government people that are, trying to make a plan to take over the government, but they're obviously crazy. So they go to this island and they find giant kaiju corpses. So then the Planetary crew goes and we get to see the Tokyo office of Planetary, which looks pretty shitty. Pretty run down. There's one guy, but we find that he's probably a capable guy. He's just there by himself running a little office, which kind of tells you a little bit about Planetary, I guess.
Very much so. We get kind of that global. We start to see that it really is a global organization that's kind of operating everywhere in the shadows.
So one thing I thought about it was cool was when you look at the Planetary logo, and you notice this more as you read through the book. It shows the globe, but wherever the office is located, it moves the globe around.
I did not notice that.
So, like, when you look at the North American Planetary offices, it shows, North America and South America. But here for the Japanese ones, it shows Asia and everything.
How do you pick up on that? Jeez, man.
I just thought that was really cool because, like, that shows how, like, what kind of organization it is.
They have the money to change their logos. That's big bucks.
That fourth man.
Yeah. Let's see. We see some more kaiju corpses. We learn basically that I think what we saw in the original Godzilla movie kind of happened. I think. I'm going from memory here, so I hope I'm not wrong.
That one pretty much is Godzilla.
Yeah.
The big one that they crawl into.
But this extremist guy is crazy, and he starts eating corpses and telling his people to eat the corpses, and then Planetary shows up and basically defeats him. But we find out that the military has a base there too. And
so
they solve the problem, and we find out there's a kaiju still living in the last panel. And it's kind of the issue.
Yep. So we see here, as I said earlier, like that fiction is real in this universe, and where kind of Japanese monster kaiju movies from the 40s and 50s and stuff, I guess 50s, are just kind of fake in our universe. Here, they're actually real on some level, and that this monster island is populated immediately after Hiroshima by giant monsters straight out of those Japanese films. Though they never left the island, and they never rampaged through Tokyo or anything. But and we do kind of get that there's this international force on the island that's kind of guarding it from intrusion. But those guys are killed when the cultists kind of I think they let go some nerve gas, and Planetary is able to kind of ransack the international agency base to get get some information, as you say, before they find out that there is. Is that does anyone know Japanese monsters pretty well? I think that's like
I do not.
yeah, which one is that? I forget which one he is.
It's a great big flying
giant chicken dragon.
Yeah, he's I'll put it in afterwards.
Yeah, when those soldiers first showed up, I thought, oh, these are Planetary's, like, like red shirt versions of those guys. And then when you find out they weren't, I was like, well, who are these people then? And we don't find out until 7 issues later. But the fact that they had American flags, Japanese flags, and was that Russian flags on
Russian
on their uniforms, that that something's going on. But I really like this issue. I don't know if anyone else knows Yukio Mishima, who was a Japanese novelist, and he actually led a coup attempt against the Japanese government. He was kind of very out there, right wing, and he ended up committing like ritual suicide after it attempted. But he actually, the guy in this, we're told that he actually is a novelist, isn't he?
Yes.
Or like the book he wrote. So I'm pretty sure this is based, or at least influenced by Mishima.
Yeah,
and,
they reference him. I think the Japanese field office guy references Mishima in one line directly, but
okay, but this guy isn't. That's not who he's not supposed to be him.
No, he's
It's
clearly an analog for him, or
yeah, even with the headband and everything like that, he gave this crazy speech in front of the and then led this weird coup attempt. But
they have that Yuki Mishima Shinryuko smell about them. Lots of talk of armed insurrection, egotism with guns, apocalypse, guerrilla warfare. So,
jeez, I thought I was making a clever connection, and it was in there the whole time.
Yeah, so
pay more close attention.
That's a good pick up.
Yeah,
thank you.
One thing I took from this, yes, this is the first. I mean, we've seen Chiquita jump out of airplanes and stuff, but I felt like this is the first time it pressed on us how fast she was.
Yeah, we see her super speed where she just, and then we see also Snow's ability to.
This is the first time
gas.
Right?
What's that?
Yeah, they could have used him on the
first
Western
time
Front.
we've seen him.
I believe this is the first time, other than he seems to like the others or something. There seems Cold follow him around, but this is the first time where he's kind of outwardly used his powers.
Yeah.
I just realized it looks like Chiquita runs away from the nerve gas. So could that have killed her?
It seems like she definitely does not want to breathe in the nerve gas. So
yeah, it's kind of interesting that she's might be vulnerable to gas. It reminds me of what was the comic book? I can't remember the name of it, but it was from the late 90s. The 21 or the 101.
I remember 21, yeah. Is it like Jimmy Palmiotti or something?
I don't remember, but it was like these people that got superhero powers in a quote-unquote real world out of the blue, and someone starts killing them. And one of them was like he was completely invulnerable, but it was a murder mystery. And whoever the murderer was, they just tied their hands behind the invulnerable person's hands behind their back and put a bag over their head and suffocated them.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But it kind of reminded me of that kind of out-of-the-box thinking for a way to deal with superheroes and their powers.
So that monster, I think, is Rodan.
The flying monster?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's just like a giant horned petrosaur.
No. Do you think that like their presence on the island brought the monster back to life, or just that a nice coincidence? Or
I don't know. I mean, I would doubt that he came back to life. I guess.
Didn't they speculate that maybe the atomic bombs didn't create them, but they sort of drew them out?
Yeah, they don't really know whether it was like a portal in the bleed or something. No one really knows for sure. What only that it was not a coincidence, but that it did coincide with the atomic bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a kind of a fun little standalone issue. I guess they're mostly standalone issues, but there is some comedy there with the kind of the crazy right wing cultists. Chapter 3 is kind of Ellis's take on the classic kind of Hong Kong.
I like issue 4. Sorry.
All right, no, that's cool. The classic Hong Kong action film. It's also kind of got ghost elements and very much the DC Spectre, as it's centers around a character who is a police officer who was betrayed and murdered and comes back as kind of the spirit of justice, which is really the Spectre story, the Jimmy Corrigan Spectre, right? But it's kind of shot are shot, but the panels are laid out in a way that I think is very cinematic and kind of gives us the feel of that Hollywood or Hong Kong rather action movie. And we get introduced to some interesting things. The Hong Kong office, which is again kind of seems like a very small office run by one super competent individual, but we get a giant what the deceased officer refers to as God, which is a giant kind of ornate machine or vessel full of human souls. It's really kind of a stunning image. So what did you guys think of Chapter 3?
That was interesting. I like I said, the individual story. It's interesting that he'll take do the Hollywood, or excuse me, the Hong Kong action issue, but then he'll throw in that machine that you're speaking of that John Cassaday illustrated so well.
Yeah.
In a big full page spread. It's like things like this that kind of actually take me out of this series a little bit, because it's by this time in this issue I've sort of figured out that literally, because they did the sci-fi, they did the pulp, and now it's literally a supernatural ghost, and I'm waiting for sort of some explanation that it's not, but it never comes. So it's literally all the supernatural sci-fi everything, and kind of the problem with that is, for me, when you really say literally anything can happen, then nothing is surprising. Does that make sense to anyone?
It does.
That's kind of what they're going for, though, isn't it? Is that it is a really weird world, and that's kind of what they're fighting to protect, almost?
Yeah, I think he's trying to build this cohesive, strange world where all these elements are kind of weaved into the reality. And whether he ultimately succeeds or fails, I think, is an interesting question. But I think that is his one of his intents.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we described it or compared it to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And to me, that worked a little bit better for me in the beginning of the series of miniseries, because it sort of slowly integrated the more outlandish, I guess,
Fantastic
extrapolations.
Elements, yeah.
Well, the extrapolations you can make with some of the more far out stuff didn't really come till later in the series of League of Extraordinary Men, or League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, sort of like the Black Dossier. I don't know if y'all read that.
Yeah.
But it gets like really way out there, sort of like this. And that stuff kind of is not really my jam. But the earlier issues where it sort of slowly builds up to that, I kind of dig more. But this is like, it's like in your face from pretty much the very beginning that's what it is. So it kind of took me out of it a little bit, or reduced my enjoyment. But it's kind of a personal thing more than
yeah, that's fair.
address of the quality of it.
Yeah, I think if this issue came before the third issue, it would have taken me out of it more. But after that one with the monsters on, this seemed almost normal to me. So I think it made a good plot sense, at least, that it came after, right after that.
Yeah. I think the important thing about this episode too was it kind of established who the drummer was, like what he could actually do. Because we've heard what he does, but this is the first time where it's just not
a machine.
It's just not machines.
Yeah.
It's like information.
Correct.
Everything. And I thought that was a really cool idea. I don't think I've ever seen something exactly like that before.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That we'll see this more, but the drummer interacts with information, and the story, the long-term story, is all about information, really. And that makes the drummer a very powerful character.
Maybe he's kind of like Neo in like the later Matrix movies where he's reading code.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all zeros and ones.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually, I think it's kind of, it goes quantum. Like Ellis is very kind of a futurist and kind of bleeding edge science kind of guy. So I think he tries to have a kind of an actual scientific basis for everything he's writing.
I think this this issue also kind of put more questions about like what Planetary actually is, because there's another field office, and these people have been working for a long time at Planetary, than the team has been around. So it's like, how long's the organization been running for, and what are they actually doing?
I guess that's a thread that we should mention that during this whole thing that Elijah Snow is trying to work out kind of the backstory of the Planetary organization, and he's kind of questioning Jaquita mostly, but we start to see contradictions to Jaquita's story that she's told Elijah Snow here, and that'll continue on through the rest of the 12 issues. Okay, Greg, you want to take us to Chapter 4, Strange Harbors?
Sure. Yeah, this was the issue that really kind of clicked for me, and I knew that I was going to stick with it. Basically, we have this, he's like a private investigator, a guy named Mr. Wilder, I believe, who is investigating this building that collapsed or was blown up. It was a Hark building, or it was next door to the Hark building?
I believe it was a Hark building, a Hark Corporation, which is the Fu Manchu character from Axel Brass's Paul Piero's his descendants.
And I believe he's sent by, was it Hark's daughter to investigate?
Correct.
Or Miss Hark, or granddaughter. So he's investigating this like ground zero type, hole in the ground where he sees this guy beating someone up in an alley, chases him. The guy runs into this, excavation basically, and he doesn't really pay attention. And as he chases him, he steps on this thing that they're digging in the ground that just looks like 3 blocks sticking out of the ground. And it's, the second he hits it, it just does, his like reality changes, and he's transported, or in his mind at least, to this bright and shiny magical reality. And you find out it's like a spaceship that's been buried underground, or what do they call it? A spin ship, or
it's a shift ship, I believe.
A shift ship from the European fleet, which doesn't really make sense. But and the ship is basically talking to him, saying that it's been crash landed here many millions of years ago. And it says probably my favorite panel of this issue, where it's trying to explain to him what happened. It says, well, this all happened very long ago, and then you see that it's like the ship is the comet that destroyed the dinosaurs, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, it happened quite some time ago, and it's trying to get a pilot to go back home, basically.
Correct.
So I don't know if anyone's read The Tommyknockers by Stephen King, but that is basically the storyline.
Oh, really?
Whereas this woman trips over this thing sticking out of the ground in the woods, starts digging. Turns out that it's a spaceship that's been buried forever, and it needs a pilot to get back home. Which I assume he's read that novel, but this is a little different spin on it. But I'm a sucker for buried spaceships, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, Ellis, one of the things he does is he has these giant living ships that he kind of put into the Wildstorm universe that kind of travel through what he calls the bleed, which is the space between universes. And these ships can travel basically to any point in any reality instantaneously. So they're extremely powerful units, and they are kind of both mechanical and alive.
Because it looks almost kind of steampunky, but then it's obviously way more technologically advanced than that genre usually has.
It's very ornate. It's a different Europe from a different Earth from a different time.
One sort of problem I had is that we do see these glimpses of these vastly far more advanced civilizations through this than ours, and yet in the 1930s or 40s, a group of really smart people were able to find something or use something that could basically wipe out total realities. And you would think some of these advanced civilizations might have, created something to prevent something like that from happening. We
might get there.
Okay.
That might be a part of the story.
Okay.
In the second half, that's I would say that's kind of addressed. Maybe not to your satisfaction, but that will be addressed at some point.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the things I really liked about this issue was the art.
Yeah.
Like the art really stands out to me. Like this is like one of the most beautiful issues that they have in the whole thing. Like especially the spaceship, like everything that they go through there.
It's so bright and it's so light. It's really beautiful, as you say. It's kind of a stark, after you read the kind of dark Hong Kong episode or issue. I keep saying episode.
Yeah.
This is so bright, and as we said, the ship is so beautiful and ornate, and just kind of has a lovely personality as well. So it's really amazing that it's one guy who does the illustrations for the entire thing. Yeah.
Like John Cassaday's got to be, he's extremely talented, to jump from, Gaiju monsters to, the spaceship where, that full page spread where it's taking out the dinosaurs. Like, those are completely different.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, we talked about that with Fiona Staples on Saga, and I just love that it's a single artistic vision with one artist who's just given all kind of amazing stuff to draw, and they just kind of knock it all out of the park. I very much think that adds to my enjoyment of the story.
The spaceship looks like kind of a huge cathedral.
Yeah. And the Jimmy Wilder character, I would say, is a very is it Billy Batson, kind of Captain Marvel, old school Fawcett, DC Captain Marvel.
Yes, I agree completely.
He's the kind of the orphan, and he's got that. If you look at him when he's in his transformed state, he's got that classic lightning bolt.
He's got the lightning
on his chest.
Yeah, I didn't catch that on the first read.
Oh yeah, I didn't catch that either. I was like, Captain Marvel, I don't know. He doesn't say Shazam.
Yeah, so he's like magically transformed. Yeah, I think he's a Captain Marvel analog.
What you call magic, we call science.
What I also liked about this issue is that you get to see Chiquita, like you saw kind of at the end of the second issue where you see the giant flying beast and she's like in complete awe of it. But in this one where he asks, do you want to see her? And she says very much, and she's like a kid in a candy shop.
Yeah.
Where she really is a zealot, or she believes that Planetary is a good thing and they're doing good work. And you also see this is the first time that Snow kind of, or at least as far as we know, steps up and takes command or takes control of an operation where, Chiquita's about to say we can't really help you, and he kind of just knocks her down and says, well, actually, we are going to help you and we'll give you whatever you need. And then we never hear about him ever again.
We will see him again.
Yeah, no, I assume we would. But
yeah, no, those are both excellent
I really wanted
points.
to turn the page and get more of this, and of course we didn't.
Those are excellent points. Chiquita is very much motivated by she's easily bored. I think that's the easiest way that she says it. And she loves the kind of the awe and the majesty that discovering this stuff at Planetary gives her. And then the second point, again at the end, we see Elijah Snow kind of taking a leadership role, and then there's a panel where the drummer and Chiquita kind of exchange a wink at that point. So it's clearly setting something up.
Yeah, after reading through 12, and then when I was rereading the issues, there's a lot of little hints and stuff that you don't get until you know what's happening later on.
Yeah, and again, at the time these were published, there were months and sometimes years between issues. So those little panels were subjects of much discussion. Again, like a song.
I bet.
What was going on was we're lucky that we can read the story in one sitting here, but at the time there were all kind of theories about all kind of things.
So what's the ending? Is the ending thought of to be good or bad? So we could know what to expect from A Song of Ice and Fire.
The ending's good. I like the ending.
I liked it more on this reread than I remembered liking it. We'll get there, I guess, but I don't want to spoil anything, but I feel like the four are set up as such powerful villains, and the task seems so impossible that I wasn't super happy with the resolution when I originally read it. That's all.
That kind of confused me. The bad guys are the four. There's these four astronauts, right?
Correct. They're basically Marvel's Fantastic Four. Right,
but the mystery is who's the fourth man who is the leader of Planetary, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a mystery, but it's not the central mystery, I wouldn't say.
Right. Well, I mean, it's resolved in these 12 issues, but
correct. And the
I would say he's the fourth
man. Is it
man.
resolved?
He's the fourth man, but the bad guys are the four.
Yeah.
So that was kind of strange to me.
When we get to the four, I'll talk about the four.
That's kind of where it lost me, where I was like, I stopped understanding who kind of everybody was, and I just went with it. But now I understand it, but I was like, wait, who's that? And it's just because they all, we'll get to it.
Yeah, a kind of a working knowledge of comics is probably highly useful, and if you had a deep knowledge of just kind of 20th century popular fiction, I think you'd really enjoy this more. But I think it's enjoyable on a lot of levels, even if you don't have kind of a deep understanding of comics or anything like that. But it is a very meta story, I guess, which is not everyone's cup of tea.
I think that was a humble brag, Thomas. Like, you'd like it a lot more if you actually knew more about what we're talking about.
For us intellectuals.
You know everything. This makes a lot of sense.
I'm glad you managed to enjoy it.
Your monkey brains.
Yeah, exactly. Your lizard brain found some enjoyment in the shiny art, at least, I hope.
We did get a couple of panels of the Doc Samson guy, just to show that he's still around.
Correct.
Yeah.
You want to move to 5?
Yep.
All right, I'll do this one.
Cool.
So, all right, so this one, chapter 5 is it's a lot of world building, and pretty much it's a conversation between Snow and Brass, and they both realized that they were born on the same day, January 1st, 1900.
They're century babies.
They're century babies. And this is that conversation I was talking about earlier when they start talking about Jenny Sparks a lot and talking her up like everyone knows who she is. But they talk a lot about like how the times have changed. But then this issue uses a lot of, it's kind of similar to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where you'll have pages of books that kind of describe Doc Brass from, the 30s and the 40s and everything. And those are interesting, and it's a different format than the comic books and everything, and I think they pulled that off pretty well. But I mean, for the most part, it's pretty much both of them talking about what they've done over the century, and even though Snow has been around the entire time, Brass doesn't know him, and Brass pretty much is talking about how he wished he had known Snow because Snow could have helped them. And during that time, they also talk about like why you would save the Earth and everything else. And there comes there's a pretty interesting line where he said like, you should have been around with us in the 30s, Mr. Snow. I can't begin to tell you what you missed. Glories. And it shows you a shot of his 7 like congratulating themselves. And then Snow's just sitting there on the grass, like really downtrodden, and he says he was busy, which is that I mean, it's chapter 5 and it's been a while, but that scene right there really made me interested a lot into what Snow is, because, he's been around for 100 years, and what has he been doing all this time and everything. So, it's pretty much a world building, issue. But there's a good amount of conversation, and it's kind of just setting up, the whole team and everything, and then also kind of developing Snow as a character as well. So, you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I don't get why Doc Brass needs 2 of the exact same belt. Is that a shout out to some superhero I don't understand?
Well, he's
a belt and a gun belt.
Because his balls are so big. That
his balls are at his belly button.
They threaten to tear his pants down. So he needs.
I think that's just the classic
belts.
Doc Savage kind of explorer's kind of uniform. Or,
if I read more, I'm sure I'd understand it. Okay.
Because it looks cool. That's why.
Yeah, we get those kind of those classic
Nazi pants too, like with the flare outs, which
those aren't Nazi pants.
That's the Nazi officer pants. They all got those weird flare out pants.
They might have used them, but
wore
that's not
those
where it came
pants back then.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just has big.
I don't know anything about this, so I can just comment on the fashion. So sorry.
Yeah, Brass is an interesting character and an interesting background that we get here, and he came from another secret society which was using eugenics and kind of scary stuff like that to kind of build superhumans. And he kind of comes from his parents were brother and sister, and we get a little bit of his backstory in those kind of pulpy text pages, which are kind of like faded antique paper looking.
Yeah, that was the thing that kind of stuck out to me about the issue that I liked, was the way Warren Ellis sort of plays with the form, the comic book form, and sort of breaks with convention and uses prose and illustrations. Sort of the way he's been playing with the form, with the covers all through this.
It's a great point. Yeah, each cover is kind of an homage to the subject matter of that issue. So that for example, the Gaiju issue looks like a Japanese movie poster, and this issue 5 looks like an old school pulp cover.
It looks like a GI Joe figure.
Well, that's like that's
that's
a derivative of something else. I'm sure I've seen that like pose before.
Yeah, it could put it right next to a Doc Savage cover.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, one thing I forgot. There's a quote from him that he says, "Do you want to know the secret of the world? It's this: save it, and it will repay you every second of every day." And that quote kind of like drifts through the entire series. Snow kind of grabs onto that, and he says it a couple times.
Yeah, this is a very important conversation that these two have here.
I want to know the secret of Brass's hair.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
Is it hair or is it like
eugenics.
A little skull cap?
Yeah, I don't know if you can Google a picture of Doc Savage, but he's got that bizarre hair as well. Actually, later in the series, I think when we meet Brass again, his hair looks kind of more normal. But
I figured when he was like lying in the in the secret cavern for like he was controlling how much of his body was going to die, so he let his legs wither, but he's like, no, touch the hair.
Well, I think his legs were damaged in the battle. That's kind of how I took it. But
I took it that he was like had to use up his energy little by little, and he started with his legs. But maybe he got shot. I don't know.
And this is a very probably the most heavy Wildstorm continuity, I think, issue in the entire series. We get Jenny Sparks, and we get John Cumberland, and we get Damonites, all of which are kind of important.
Damonites. Those are the ones from Wildcats, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a picture of the 7 pulp heroes cleaning out enclave of Damonite soldiers.
Yeah, this is the one that I got lost on the most because they keep throwing out all these names. I'm like, I'm sure I'm supposed to know who these people are, but I'm just going to keep reading.
Oh, they spelled it different than in the Wildcats, I think. That might be why I didn't pick up on it.
Yeah, they call them Demonites here.
Yeah.
But, you don't really need to know who John Cumberland is or who Jenny Sparks is or any of that stuff. But it certainly places it in the Wildstorm universe if you do know. So.
We do get some information about Anna Hark, I think.
Correct.
It's kind of important because she's I think we haven't seen her in these 12, but isn't she still a player?
She is. She's the daughter of what is his first name? Does he have a first name? Yeah, Fu Manchu Hark.
I didn't even try to remember their names. I just called them Tarzan, Fu Manchu, and Doc Savage.
So she will be pretty important going forward in the second half of the series, and she'll be featured in a few episodes or issues.
Was the Superman guy?
John Cumberland.
Was he from the Wildstorm, or is he a Planetary thing?
No, he's from Wildstorm. He's from Stormwatch, I believe.
Oh, okay. Just curious.
And he's very much kind of the original 30s, 40s Superman. Again, not super important here, but an interesting character from the later Stormwatch. I think he actually he might end up. Spoilers there, I guess.
Spoiler alert.
He kind of looks like what's that? The villain is the main guy in the series. That's
the Mark Waid one.
Yeah, that's he kind of reminds me.
Irredeemable? Is it Irredeemable or?
I think that might be it. I didn't read it. I just kind of keep an eye on things.
Yeah, he does. I haven't read that in a while, but he's. I don't know if that's the one you're thinking, but he does.
I think it is.
I was just saying, like, the Hark Corporation, like, last issue got attacked by the Snowflake terrorist organization. So there's kind of, it's building, like, little side stories.
Correct, yeah. So...
just, like, I wonder if Snowflake's connected to Elijah Snow. That would be an odd connection.
Yeah, the Snowflake is kind of that multiverse kind of computer thing, and it's kind of the strands. Each issue is kind of a standalone issue, but it is definitely weaving those strands of the ongoing kind of mythology through here?
So chapter 6 is that basically we get a new history where the Americans stole Nazi scientists after the collapse of Germany in World War II, and they made 2 space programs. One was the Apollo mission, which was a public mission, and then really coolly they made a side mission called Artemis that reached the moon a lot earlier than the Apollo missions, and they had 4 people who were on it. Randall Dawling, who was a physicist, Jacob Green, he's supposed to be like Reed Richards, Jacob Green, pilot, supposed to be like Ben Grimm, William Leather, who's supposed to be like the flame guy.
Johnny Storm,
yeah. And Ken Suskin, who's supposed to be like Miss Invisible or
Sue Storm.
Sue Storm. Or Sue Richards. Doesn't she change her name?
Well, yeah, they get married eventually. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So something odd happens during their flight where they go when they're going into space, and they encounter what looks to be something like a multiverse bridging like snowflake. But we're not sure quite what happens. But that, as this story is being told, there's a fight going on in a building called Four Voyagers Plaza, where Chiquita and Elijah are kind of confronting the Four. And they kind of fight through everything, and then finally Elijah is confronting Leather, and Leather acts like he knows who Elijah is, and he's toying with Elijah, like who... It seems like Elijah has a missing memory and can't piece everything together. And then they battle to a standstill, so Leather's able to resist Elijah's cold powers, presumably with his heat powers, like Johnny Storm. And then he wins the engagement by, like, I think blow something up, right?
I think it's kind
they kind of fight to a draw, I would say.
Well, then he leaves.
Snow kicks him in the nuts. That's his big move.
That's right. That was a good shot.
Yeah, he does that quite a
Did
bit.
not go halfway across the Grand Canyon, though. Or all the way across the Grand Canyon, so... Missing Chiquita's power a little bit. But that's, like, our basic introduction to the Four, and... a really cool side history story, which I would love to believe.
Yeah, this is kind of the Four will be our big bad for the story. I guess it's fair to say, and they are kind of a perverted Fantastic Four from Marvel, Silver Age Marvel Comics, and they will be the direct adversaries of Planetary, and I think it's interesting to note we haven't gotten there yet to the 4th member of Planetary, but I think that the 4 members of Planetary, including Ambrose Chase, are kind of exactly kind of the equivalents of the 4 members of the Four and the Fantastic Four, with Snow being the kind of the elemental based character, Chiquita being the strong character. Ambrose Chase being the force fields and energy manipulation like that character, and then with the drummer being that technical genius character. So I think that it's an interesting idea that the 4 members of Planetary, and getting ahead of myself a little bit with Ambrose, but are kind of exact opposites of the 4 members of the Four.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, like, this is the first time we get, one of the big baddies actually explaining, like, hey, we're so much more powerful than you, and we've just been letting you kind of, like, do your thing, but now you're causing us trouble, so we're going to kind of fight back. But did any of you believe that? Like, because I would imagine, like, if this group was so super powerful, like, Planetary must be on par or at least close to them. They can't just be these, like, AAA players against the major leagues. Like, I didn't believe him he's a bad guy. You're not supposed to believe him, but it seemed like he was, he's super powerful. He goes all blue and he beats Snow, but I know there's much more going on than what they actually talk about.
Well, he is one guy and he beats up Chiquita and he escapes from Snow. I mean, I think that's in and of itself.
It says, like, we're leaving you alone because you amuse us. I don't think I think they're pretty much leaving alone because they can't destroy them, and that's just like an out they're giving themselves.
I guess I kind of, maybe because I wanted it to be a better story of, like, this small little scrappy organization versus these, like, super big bads. I kind of believed it when I first saw it.
Yeah,
Like-
I'm more or less believed it too.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but I would say that the Four has their reasons for letting Planetary operate.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I thought was cool in this was, and I didn't even recognize this because I hadn't put I really didn't put the Fantastic Four together until much later on in the series. But how they have the Moleman shout out
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, again, I should have said that with the Paul Pierce, but they have a kind of the classic superhero kind of trophy room stuff.
Yeah.
And the first thing is the Subterraneans, who are the equivalent of the Mole Men from I think it's the first Fantastic Four story.
Yeah, I like the big, huge picture of outer space that had the stairs leading up into it.
It's like almost like, don't they have like the negative zone entrance or something? It's just an incredible image of this portal as an ornate painting, which is hundreds of feet tall.
Yeah.
And also, when they were telling about their about the astronaut story, it said that they left on November 22nd, 1963, which is the day that Kennedy was shot.
Yeah.
So I know there has to be some connection there. Like, why would they just pick that specific date out of nowhere? So, are they responsible for killing Kennedy, or is there's something going on there? Because that's a very important date in history, at least.
Yeah, I also liked if on the file folder of the Four that they're looking at is basically the Four is a swastika.
Yeah. You see that a couple times.
Yeah.
Like when they come up to Leather the first time, it's kind of there's a 4 in the background and it's kind of swastikas.
Yeah, it's that stylized.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for the Nazis to show up at one point, and I thought this was going to be the Nazi issue when we got the whole like World War II little explanation, but then it kind of went somewhere else.
Well, Suskind is a Nazi.
Yeah.
And they're kind of that Project Paperclip. They just kind of take Nazi scientists and bring them over.
Well, that's what they explain it, because like Paperclip basically is became the led to the Apollo program. But I like how in this one they were saying that that was just like the cover up for the real operation, which was to get those super smart people that made Werner von Braun look like an idiot.
Yeah, I like the picture of Sputnik where there's a guy holding like a space laser.
Yeah.
About to shoot down Sputnik. But this is I don't know, I love this chapter, and kind of perverting the Fantastic Four into bad guys, I think is kind of super fun for me.
As the DC hero fan.
Yeah, I actually love the Fantastic Four. It's one of the parts of Marvel I love.
As someone who, I mean, I'm a Marvel fan, and I actually don't like the Fantastic Four. I found this, like, once I realized it was the Fantastic Four, these guys are much more interesting to me than, like, the original ones. So.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to, not to give too much of a tangent, but I think the Fantastic Four are kind of hard to get right. I think John Byrne's run in the 80s was like some of my favorite comics of all time, and if you haven't checked it out, you should definitely do that. But yeah, it's not the easiest comic to, I think, make really good.
Well, one of the things about the Fantastic Four is Reed Richards is this super brilliant guy, and yet he never uses his inventions to really do too much good in the world. It's an interesting,
which kind of parallels what goes on here.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. So,
and they make brutal movies. So
yeah,
I'm still waiting for the trailer for the new one.
Yeah, we got Wallace playing Johnny Storm, right? If anyone, I guess, has anyone seen
from
The Wire?
Nice.
It's crazy. Nice. I don't know. I'm interested to see how that goes.
That's the guy. It's the guy from
Friday Night Lights too.
Oh,
I'm thinking, what's where the 4 people got the telekinetic powers? Wasn't that he in that one?
Yeah,
Chronicle.
I think so.
Is that it?
Chronicle, I've not seen that.
Aren't they making like Dr. Doom a blogger or something?
Oh God, I hope not.
I heard they were making him a hacker.
A hacker, oh God.
Like Doom is his online name.
This is Fox who controls it. So
okay, it's Fox.
It's not Marvel.
It's not Marvel. Yeah, I love the Jonathan Hickman recent run on Fantastic Four. That's one of my favorite Fantastic Four runs. But that's a bit of a tangent. So, okay. Anyone else have anything to say on 6 before we move on quickly to the preview short?
I actually didn't read that. I didn't know that was on the syllabus, Professor.
It's on there.
It's not in the omnibus, I don't think.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
not. It's not in the omnibus.
Well, it probably is. It's just not at this point. So.
Oh, I guess I got
because
one
I
up
didn't
on
wanna-
you
I didn't wanna-
omnibus reading people. Haha.
So wait, is this the preview story?
Correct. It's
Incredible Hulk
Yeah,
story.
so it's after. It's actually after issue 12.
Oh, is that where it comes in the omnibus?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I'll read
Okay.
it while you guys are talking.
We can skip it. It's
It
Go ahead.
introduces. Actually, no one. Never mind.
They trapped the Incredible Hulk, and he lives for like years
Yeah, he lives
before he finally starves to death.
The Hulk is created, and they put him in a pit.
Yeah, they put
Oh,
him
I
in
can't
a-
tell if you guys are being sarcastic or not.
Oh,
No,
it's the Incredible Hulk analog character.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
So,
It says
so the Dr. Banner character is transformed into the Incredible Hulk with a this reality-changing bomb that he created, and he ends up battling the U.S. military in the desert for I think like 24 days or something like that before they finally put him down a 5-mile deep pit and just leave him down there to starve to death, which I think takes like
it says a
25
5-mile
years. Or something.
deep pit under the base, burned by a nuke. We put David Payne down there and kept him there without food or water. He finally died in 1983.
So it's just and that was the preview that came out before Planetary ever did, but it takes place continuity-wise. I saw a list that figures out exactly where it best fits, but I want to say around 3 or 4. As it takes place before Elijah starts taking control.
It says in the credits it says for Adam Kubert.
Yeah, I don't know the Kuberts are artists, but he might have died or
Did he? Because I remember Andy and Adam were big in the 90s. Were artists. Did something happen to Adam?
I get my Kuberts confused.
Well, there was Joe Kubert from the 60s and 70s.
That's
He's
the
like
one
a
I was
prolific.
thinking of.
And then his sons were big in the 90s. They were real popular artists. They were Andy and Adam. But if something happened to Adam Kubert, like...
No, he
I
must
never
still be
heard
alive.
about
I don't know, maybe he was doing Hulk at the time. I don't know. I don't know why it's dedicated to him, I guess.
Yeah. You know,
But for me, it's...
I've got this machine in front of me that can find things out.
For me, if you look at the art here, for example, there's one panel on the third page of the story where it's the old general and Snow looks kind of nothing like
he looks
does.
cartoony almost.
Yeah.
I mean, Cassaday just grows as an artist during the course of this, which again, it took 10 years to put out, so that's to be expected, but he's a much better artist, I'd say, than this preview would show.
Okay, well, I don't see anything on his Wikipedia page that would indicate why something was dedicated to him, so maybe it's just like a friendly joke or something, or a shout-out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the story behind that.
You suck.
Fail. Okay.
All right, we're halfway done.
Awesome.
All right.
Let's pick it up. All right, this is the one I would love if someone did this Chapter 7, which is going to be our Vertigo Hellblazer John Constantine issue, if someone wants to able to give the summary, because I have all kinds of questions.
I guess I could do this one.
So do I.
I don't know if I have a lot of answers, because
Okay.
I know my Swamp Thing, but I never got into the big English invasion and all that Vertigo stuff too deep. But we found out that Chiquita is like all broken up because one of her old boy toys supposedly died. So we go to England to the funeral, and it's basically we learn it's John Constantine. What is his name here? Jack Carter.
Jack Carter.
At first I thought this might be a John Carter analog, but it turned out to be John Constantine. So, but we go to the funeral, and it's basically all the Vertigo characters at the funeral. We see Animal Man, Swamp Thing,
Charlie Brown.
Is Charlie Brown? Yeah, I think he's the member
Yeah, I
of the
don't
Charlie
know
Brown
who that-
T-shirt, right?
I just realized I think the two people on the bench, that's supposed to be Sandman and Death.
Death, yeah.
Did I made a connection.
I think
Even got the onk.
Yeah, we see looks like the Demon, Metal Man.
Metal. Who is the one with like the upside down face?
Hmm.
The
Maybe I don't know. Shade the Changing Man, maybe?
No, he's
The geek or brother power. I read that on a review. Or summer.
I like how the drummer is just playing his Game Boy. All of these people are like, he's giving this epic eulogy and he's just playing Game Boy. From 1987.
Yeah, but I was wondering, I found it hard to believe that John Constantine, or an analog of him, would die, but we get a backstory of just someone he crossed in the past. And long story short, we found out basically that it was all a trick and John Constantine didn't die and he double-crossed the guy that was trying to kill him. He's kind of like, oh, there he is. He's kind of like a Superman-looking character, but he's really dumb. Is this supposed to be maybe like a Marvel Man thing?
I believe so. That would be my guess, yeah. Is it Miracle Man or Marvel Man?
Yeah. Miracle
Kind
Man.
of analog.
Oh man,
He's like a giant garbage pail kid version of Superman. That's how I picture him.
But John Constantine, of course, it's all a trick, and he kills him and kind of walks off into the sunset, so to speak. Because you can't kill John Constantine; he'll always win in the end.
And he walks off as Spider Jerusalem.
Oh, that's right. That's what I was going to ask.
As the Warren Ellis character from Transmetropolitan.
oh, I knew he looked familiar. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on in this issue, and I'm not sure what your guys' take on it. It seems to me, I don't know. I put in the notes whether it's a pastiche or a parody. It seems almost to me to be mocking Alan Moore and Vertigo here.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's...
Why do you think this is mocking as opposed to any of the other issues that have referenced the other stuff?
At some point, they talk about the characters at the funeral, and they're like, well, they look kind of ridiculous, don't they? Don't they?
Well,
Elijah says, don't they look faintly ridiculous? And
yeah, but that could be just like a commentary on like anything from like, it's just about time passes, when you look at stuff and it's not the same as...
Sure, and that's what Chiquita says, it's not the 80s anymore. And the transformation of Constantine to Jerusalem seems to me to be, I don't know, I took that Constantine is a thing of the past and Jerusalem a character for the future.
Well, don't tell Fox that.
And
is it on Fox? Can I get that?
It's on NBC.
Oh, NBC, okay.
And just the notion that the Miracle Man or Superman analog here is kind of rebelling against kind of the reconstruction of superheroes as kind of mature, complicated characters. I don't know. I don't know that it is a parody. Just my take was that this seemed a little more negative towards the source material than some of the other books or the other chapters, but I could be wrong about that.
Well, Swamp Thing obviously is still awesome after all these years. I don't know. Had all so much stuff.
How's that editing come along, Shane?
Is it going to be eligible for 2015 or not?
I'll get it out here before too long.
I hope it never comes out. It just becomes the running joke for forever.
Where is that second comic book one?
It's there. It's in the background.
I thought it was interesting, like the political commentary that they were making on this, and how that's why I took why the superheroes looked so ridiculous was there was so many things going wrong that the superheroes were a different kind of people. And then I also liked how the drummer, it's kind of at the end of the issue, but he's like, magic is the cheat codes for the world and everything, and then he draws the pentagram.
Yeah, that's very cool.
I've always liked that. So
I do like that panel where he's winking and his one eye just is huge and his head's cocked, and you're like, okay,
yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, he's in his element now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very different take on magic, say, than what we saw in Saga, which is that kind of where you had to sacrifice something. Here, as you say, they equate it to a cheat code for the operating system of the universe.
Well, I kind of took it as in, not a completely original idea, but magic is just a different form of energy that, it's a different way of interfacing with it. It's not really...
Yep.
It's science, it's just a different kind.
That we don't quite understand.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's what he says. He's like, when Snow asks him if you could see magic, he just says, magic's just signal, just information. It's just a cheat code kind. So.
Yeah. And we get that recurrence, as you say, of information kind of underlying everything.
Yeah.
And we see Snow's freezing powers here again. He kind of instantaneously freezes a city block. It's kind of cool.
But he left nice little patches for Chiquita and...
Well, I know. Is that their warmth? I didn't know what that was. If their body warmth kept those from freezing or what that was.
I think he's just being considerate.
Yeah, he's considerate.
He doesn't strike me as the considerate type.
Oh, they're growing on him.
Well, he could probably really hurt the drummer if he didn't.
Oh.
I mean, as far as I know, he's just, human, right? Other than his sort of passive power.
It's no physical resistances that we know of. Okay, so you guys don't see it as much negative, I guess, as I did, but it's an interesting issue for me because I never quite knew how to take it. I think Ellis and Moore are friends, and Moore did the introduction for the first collection anyway, but I kind of took it as an anti-Vertigo spin on things, but
I figured since they were all DC owns properties that this wasn't like you could look at that and say, yeah, that's Swamp Thing there, and that's Etrigan, and those are the Metal Men, where it's not like if it was a Marvel Knights book or something where they would completely make fun of them. So I don't know. It could be, but I mean, Animal Man looks just like Animal Man.
Yeah. Title, I know, is To Be in England. Again, this is another thing I took as kind of a negative. To be in England in the summertime. If we ever got the Swamp Thing episode out, the issues of Swamp Thing have those very often those kind of stilted kind of titles. And the actual quote here is from an Art of Noise song. It's not from a piece of poetry or literature or something. It's from a very poppy kind of techno song with kind of illusions of being something more. So pretentious, perfect, yeah. So that's another thing how I took it, but that the whole thing was kind of pretentious is a good way to put it.
Yeah, I think all that Vertigo stuff was kind of pretentious, except for Swamp Thing, which really was the precursor for that.
To chapter 8, if anyone's interested. Otherwise, I can do it.
I could do number 8.
Yeah, I thought you might want to do it. It's got some them in it, right?
Yes, I like the them ants. So this issue basically, it's sometime later. They're in the desert, the Planetary team, and they meet this mysterious woman, and she's glowing, so we know something's up. I thought, well, she's a ghost, but she's glowing for other reasons. So they basically are taken to this sort of derelict city, which is kind of like a government testing facility where they did all sorts of experiments on these, undesirables. Basically anybody who the McCarthy hearings said was anti-American was sent here. I think they said at one point it was a disgraced soldier, the communists. I think they mentioned the gays at some point also. And they did all these weird experiments and they turned them into monsters and brutalized them. And there are these giant ants that Chiquita Wagner dispatches quite easily by jumping up and punching them in the face. And we're told that the lady who is sort of narrating the story, which I actually forget her name.
I think it's Allison.
I think Snow has a little crush on her, or he's kind of in awe of her. But I don't know. It might just be because she's radioactive. So we find out...
Yeah, I didn't get that, but that's an interesting concern.
Well, I thought just because where he's like, oh my god, look at her. I didn't know if that was just because she was glowing, but he seemed, and then she's kind of like the damsel in distress,
I guess so. I mean, he sees lots of weird stuff, and he never quite reacts in that same way. So we could certainly read it that way.
I kind of took it just as being a old 50s, made-up girl that Like it was some
Of
like a
all
girl
the-
from his like some
Of
a
all
girl
the
from his
government
time.
fake towns to walk into, she had to walk into this.
Yeah, it's like it was something from like like a girl from his back in his day. So that's what I took it for.
Yeah. So, but the people running this facility, it's not the regular government. It's the four, correct? Or they're
Correct.
underlings?
It seems like it's an out part of Project Artemis, I think.
Yeah,
with
because Dr.
Dowling.
Dowling wasn't one of the four, but he was like their project manager, basically.
Correct. This seems
And
to
then
predate.
Anna Hark shows up, and so we get her sort of Allison is sort of telling us all the awful things that they did to everybody. They turned one guy into like the 50-foot woman, and this other guy is, what'd they say? He's
Invisible. And
yeah, and they're not like superheroes. They're all like failed experiments. It's all grotesque, and nothing is. And these people are living in this internment camp, basically.
correct. Yeah, it's all takes on those classic 50s, 60s sci-fi B movies, kind of.
And she basically, it's pretty horrifying what she's gone through, how she basically remembers being murdered and then being brought back to life. And I think we're led to believe this happened many times. It wasn't just once.
Yeah.
And she's finally she has a half-life of 50 years, so she's finally gonna die for good. And that's basically how it ends, where she kind of just goes up in a puff of smoke, and Elijah very gently caresses her clothes that she left behind. So I think he's like, I'm taking these for evidence, guys. I'm gonna log these myself. And yeah, but I like this issue. It was self-contained, but it also had the whole, four or Artemis connection. And it had giant ants, and I was drawn to this episode.
Yeah, kind of.
It's funny. I keep calling them episodes because they are almost like, little TV shows almost.
I thought this one was pretty horrific. I mean, and this goes to
in America, nonetheless.
Yeah, it's human experimentation by our government or elements of our government, which is pretty bothersome.
Yeah, and it's like I sort of been getting a negative vibe from sort of this world. It's not a positive world. It's not a optimistic world, so to speak. It seems like the bad guys are in control, and it really like paints the world in a negative light. As far as and that's sort of one of the things I don't like about this book.
Yeah, the four here are shown as kind of perverting our world and kind of taking it in a very dark direction. And I guess we're not quite to the four yet, but we are to Artemis Dowling. Yeah, so this is it is kind of classic sci-fi B movies, but it is a very dark and troubling take on it, and I could see that being not enjoyable.
Well, he's kind of showing like how far people were going, like with Cold War paranoia, and I was kind of listening to one of the history podcasts, Hardcore History, where they was talking about the Red Scare recently, and like how far I think it was Truman pushed laws really far, where like I don't know, you could authorize like the FBI to look into anyone's history, and he's kind of like mirroring it in a different way though, but like he's just showing how far fear can push people to, like, governments to react against their own citizens.
Correct, and how people can exploit kind of those legitimate fears for illegitimate reasons and kind of pervert that. All right, so chapter 9.
This is where it all completely lost me.
Yeah, this is a tough one to comprehend, and it's Grant Morrison. This one is dedicated to Grant Morrison, and
I didn't notice that. That's fun.
And that's probably why it's out there and crazy. But it follows the four having creating a fictional universe and then sending fictionauts to that universe and then retrieving them. And that's pretty crazy stuff. But the fictional spaceship that they send is brought back to crash lands in one of the fictionauts' childhood home, and then it's brought back to a base for the four. I guess I should preface this by saying that this issue takes place in 1997, where the rest of the story is taking place, I think, in 2000 and going forward. So this is a flashback issue, I believe, in its entirety. And we see Planetary field team enter here, and the three members of the team in the past are the drummer, Chiquita, and a third man here is Ambrose Chase, who I mentioned earlier. And Ambrose Chase is kind of a matrixy type character. He is kind of limited physics. He can control physics in a limited space for limited amounts of time. So he can do bullet time, and he can deflect bullets and run up walls, and kind of that classic Matrix stuff. And the Planetary team enters here intent on, I don't know what they're really doing, actually. I think they're just trying to prevent the Four from creating fictional universes where they can do whatever they want. But it ends up, the mission kind of goes south, and Ambrose Chase is shot dead by the main villain, or I guess he's like a middle manager for the Four. Go ahead.
So I had a question here. Was that bad guy one of the people that they brought back from a fictional universe?
No, I think he's like the project manager.
Because he talks like he's in a movie. He's like, I'm the bad guy. You can't kill me. Yeah, so that's why I thought he was. That's where I really didn't know what was going on. But
yeah, this one really bends fiction. I mean, he talks about when he shoots Ambrose Chase. I guess I should say he's an African American, and he kind of says this is a sci-fi movie, and the black guy always dies.
Yeah.
And then then he tries to reason with Chiquita, but she kind of just. I guess
if you kill me, this movie will never end. But I guess that's just his way of rash because he's obviously crazy.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Go ahead.
So, like, when he shoots Ambrose, he's talking to, like, the guy that's shot down in, like, the green sweater. And he's like, Devis, do this one thing right for me, and you're more useful in death than you ever were in life. And then he's like, damn it, Devis, if they're sending the one I think they've sent, then I need the surprise. Yes. And then then he's able to shoot Ambrose. Like, do we know who this Devis guy is and what he did?
I think he just had a holster. A concealed holster? I don't get that either.
That's it?
I don't know. I don't know. That seems to be, I don't know. This is a confusing one.
I think
that has to be it because they kind of like in the panel it goes out of the way to show the holster on his back.
Yeah.
And like that's where the guy got the gun from. But
all right.
Well, people have been shooting at him all through the issue and they haven't been able to hit him.
Right, exactly. I was like, there's got to be something else than just like, oh, great, you're carrying a gun. But
yeah.
I guess not.
I don't think so, but it's a reasonable question. But I can only come up to the conclusion that Devis or Devis or whatever had a concealed gun on him that Chase was not expecting.
And do we ever meet the fictionaut, like the guy that like asks, "Why did you invent me?"
I can answer, I guess, if you want.
Okay.
I don't guess it's yes.
The answer is actually no, never.
Oh, okay.
So
we talk about him in the rest of later in the series, but he never makes an appearance. But
maybe I just don't remember. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I thought was interesting with this was like Ambrose Chase, how he dressed.
Mm-hmm.
And the first that was like the first tip off for me on who the fourth man was.
Right. We get a 2 pages, I believe, of flashbacks in black and white, where we have someone speaking to a young Ambrose Chase, and then we get Ambrose and Chiquita, a smoking Chiquita, distraught, kind of talking, and then we get a flashback of someone in backlit. Saying, world, this is my daughter. I want you two to be good to each other because it's a strange world out there. And you both need all the help you can get.
I thought that was Ambrose Chase. Holding up his daughter. Is it not?
It may be.
All the flashbacks are Ambrose Chase. That's why I assume that. It's Ambrose Chase as a kid. And
oh, yeah. He does have a...
He does have a daughter.
Or does he have a son?
No, it's a daughter. It is a daughter.
Okay, so I assume that, that's got to be...
That's fair, then. And then we have a page of Ambrose being interviewed by the fourth man, who tells him to get a white suit in 1994. So we're learning that the history of the Planetary organization stretches back, and the field team stretches back much further than we've been led to believe earlier. in the series.
Why does
Which is
Ambrose
interesting because, like, Chiquita was the one who said that they had only been around for 4 years.
Right. Or that she didn't know anyone that had been there longer than for her.
Yeah, but then they went to Hong Kong, and that guy had been there for like 6 years, right?
Yeah. I guess I should go ahead.
Why did Ambrose Chase's body die? Do we know that? Or I mean, why did it disappear?
Why did it disappear?
Yeah. So in the end, after he's shot, he's in Drum's hands, and he's kind of fading out, and he actually kind of distorts and disappears, and it's unclear what happens to him at that point.
Like, it's his own like distortion field that just kind of swallows him up, right?
It seems very consistent with his distortion fields from the earlier.
You're so diplomatic. Seems very consistent with his distortion fields. Yes.
Also, we're led to believe that Chiquita and what's the guy's name? I'm sorry. Ambrose were romantically involved, correct? Where once he dies, she kind of completely loses it, and she calls him baby as he's dying. So I figured that was going on.
So is it Chiquita's daughter?
I mean, I would say.
Oh, I didn't think that. Why would he call her father baby?
No, I'm saying is it her daughter?
Oh, okay, yeah, probably.
She seems a lot younger than him. He's a nasty old man.
That does happen.
I would say that.
Yeah, well, this isn't L.A. or
ages.
New York. I'm in Texas.
Is that Bubba Country? I don't know. I just watched the Mike Huckabee interview on The Daily Show where there's Bubba Country and where do we live? What's the other one? Forget his weird. Sorry, never mind.
I'm going to cut out
Huckabee's from Arkansas.
Huckabee reference.
I like Huckabee.
I like him that he goes on The Daily Show.
Moving on.
Okay.
I liked the last panel. I thought it was pretty like ominous when it was like in black with white fonts. Like the fourth man went missing in action. Elijah Snow had never heard of Ambrose Chase. And like Chiquita Wagner was there when Ambrose Chase became the third man. I thought it was like this really interesting like logic puzzle that like when you look at it, you're just like, oh, I think I see where this is going.
All very intriguing stuff, but I agree. This is kind of a very confused. The whole concept of a fictional universe, and it kind of really gets crazy in this issue.
I think we should point out this is again another mission where Planetary is not actually fulfilling its like mission statement. They're just involving themselves in something else. They're not looking at a secret history.
They seem to be actively trying to stop this, and they're actively killing people as something else is happening. So that is something to note.
I did like when she crushed his hand, like she literally drove the gun into his hand, which really kind of is pretty gruesome.
That would hurt. That would hurt a lot.
Okay, so on to Chapter 10, Magic and Loss. Anyone
I'll
like
take this one?
Okay.
I really like this one.
Yeah, I do too.
Planetary team is looking through. They found they're going through this area. It's not quite clear what they found.
This is for Voyager's Plaza, where
this is part of that.
Correct. You can tell in the back. There's that window.
Oh yeah, there it is. So they're going through all the artifacts from the Voyager's Plaza, and they find this a lot of different things. But then they find this it's like a red cloth and these two metal collars and this lantern. And Elijah Snow's just like, why would you keep all this stuff? And asking, and then it kind of goes through, and we get a Superman origin story with some aliens who are willing to send their son out, but in an interesting twist that I liked, when they shot their son out, it actually destroyed the world because it used like the last gravity of the Earth and everything. And then it goes to kind of a creation story for the Blue Lanterns, which isn't the Blue Lanterns for the DC universe. It's just the Green Lanterns pretty much going through. And I thought what was interesting with this one was like they used the So here they say, "Be the light in blackest night," which is really interesting because that phrase in Green Lantern was really big in like 2009, 2010, and to my knowledge, it wasn't used in Green Lantern like mythology before that. So
it's part of the oath, the Green Lantern oath.
is it okay?
Yeah, in Blackest Night. I can't